It sounds like a load of bull, but I was actually kind of excited for this game. Yeah, I know, it sounds weird. Choo Choo Charles. The game that you've seen all across the platform this last week. Now I'm assuming most, if not all of you, know the history behind this game, but for those who may just be a little unaware, Choo Choo Charles is a game made by 2-Star Games, or Gavin... I'm not going to bother saying his last name. You may recognize that he also made My Beautiful Paper Smile, which, well, this video isn't dedicated to it, but it's pretty good. Art style reminds me a lot of, this guy. Since then, I wanted to see what 2-Star would get up to next, and well, October of last year, he announced that the game that I'm looking at today, he also has a YouTube channel where he uploaded a little devlog series documenting everything about making this game, all the struggles, all the pain, all the achievements, and that's pretty much about it. I'm gonna link his channel down below because I've watched the series. It's actually quite entertaining. Pretty cool stuff. You can go watch him. Oh, and speaking of, if you're down there, please consider subscribing. It's a massive help, and we're so close to that 10k milestone, and thanks, really appreciate it. And oops, it's that time. I believe that is the YouTube Horror-Bait Express. The train has just arrived. I'll see you all later. Bye. So the premise of this game is fairly simple. We are an owner of a museum, and we just so happen to be a monster hunter. So we're playing as a washed up Richter Belmont, but instead of hunting vampires, we're hunting spider trains. He should totally walk up to Charles and go,
"Die, monster! You don't belong in this world."
We're getting all of this information from an old friend of ours, Eugene Krabs. Then we cut to getting onto the island as Mr. Krabs tells us about Plankton's elaborate scheme to try and steal the Krabby Patty secret formula using his spider train, and obviously basic tutorial stuff. Also, a lot of others who played this game were surprised on how quick Mr. Krabs is, and honestly, I'm not. I mean, how's he gonna protect the formula? It's not like Squidward's gonna do anything. So we do our first mission, which is basically just a piss take. We get into the train station, and there it is. And it's colored yellow, so I'm gonna call it Homer Simpson. You have the machine gun on the back, 3 levers that control forward, reverse, and stop, and not even 5 minutes, Charles ambushes us,
Money!
killing Mr. Krabs in the process. Then we are then set off on our lonesome. You know, speaking of Charles, does anyone remember how dark the old Thomas show used to get? I mean, I remember one part where Henry gets stuck in the tunnel to shelter from the rain, but is blocked inside, only to sit there and watch his friends pass by as he slowly dies. Or like how the characters can only move their eyes but can't change facial expressions until they're off screen. Does anyone remember the 2000s movie Thomas and the Magic Railroad? Starring Alec Baldwin? aka the Boss Baby. Oh, and Mara Wilson, one of the actresses, is also related to Ben Shapiro. Just thought I'd let you know. Opening the map, you can immediately spot 3 icons, a yellow icon, a red and blue icon. Now, blue icons are story missions and are required in order to beat the game. Red missions are for new weapons, and yellows are optional missions that award scrap. Speaking of the devil, scrap is the main currency. It's used to either heal your Homer Simpson or upgrade one of its 3 stats, speed, damage, and armor. Pretty self-explanatory. Speed increases max speed, damage increases max damage, and armor increases the train's overall health. So another thing you'll have to do is rail switching. It's not exactly a pain in the arse, you just have to flip this lever. It's either right or left. I stuck with left, which was a bit of a mistake. I did my first optional quest from Tony Tiddle, more like Tony Gothgirl Titties. We then need to get some scrap from his barn. I actually didn't finish this quest. I only got 8 of the 9 scrap in his barn. I didn't even realize that there was one more that I didn't get till way later in my playthrough. I would go back and get it though, so that's about it. The next one I did was with this lady, who has a bit of a thing for pickles, and I can already sense some of you typing that Pickle Rick joke. Yeah mate, the door's that way. You can stay as long as that Reddit tier trash stays out. I got stuck with this mission, not that it's hard or anything, it's actually because you need an item that's given to you in an optional mission somewhere else, being a lockpick. So I was basically stuck with a thumb up my arse until I gave up and Charles decided to show up, where I ended up getting killed by him. Hold on, I'm just gonna nick the Catacrys bit real quick. Charles decided to my cock. You lose some scrap for dying. It's punishing up until midway through the game as the value doesn't actually increase. You only lose like 1 to 3 scrap upon death. After my encounter with Charles, I decided to go back up and get all the weapons first, then go for the optional missions, then finish the required story missions, and finish the fight. Oh yeah, there's a dramatic piano cue every time that happens. If you played Halo 3, you'd know. So the first weapon I got was the flamethrower, or well, it's called the bug spray, and we just need to turn on the water to put the fire out. The fact that this guy calls us a genius for doing that feels rather insulting, don't you think? Anyway, you probably noticed by now that all the missions in this game are fetch quests, which as we all know is Pastra's favourite activity, because why else would he design his OC with new alarms? The next weapon we find is the rocket launcher, which is appropriately named the Boomer. Pyrocynical tier humor right there. And I already know that when he plays this game on stream, he is going to make jokes about it. I can smell it. It's in the air. It stinks. And let me guess, the sequel for this game is going to have a minigun, and it's going to be called the Zoomer. Oh, and hi Sneak Snag. How you doing? We need to fetch this box of rockets from this little bunker. Then the last weapon is a long-range sniper being called Bob, named after this NPC's husband who gives it to you. You need to get it from this camp, which is obviously guarded by these guys. They're cultists, as you can see by their masks. They do wield shotguns. You can fight back, obviously. They're not too hard to kill. And we'll see them later again. So we then assemble the final gun, and there, now we have all of our pretty little weapons. So now let's talk about the weapon lineup, shall we? We have the Derailleur, which is the starting weapon. It's alright, I guess. It's basically an all-around kind of weapon. It can do a little bit of everything, but it's exceptionally good at nothing. The Bug Spray is easily one of the best weapons, mainly for its utility, or well, really its synergy with another weapon. Its damage output is absolute dog water, but where it shines is the ability to slow Charles down, to get some distance between each other, and relieve you train for just a little while. This is where the Boomer comes in, and as it's got some insane damage stats, you can usually get 2 rockets before Charles gets too close and the rockets start dealing damage to your train. The last weapon is Bob, and I think this is easily the worst weapon in the game. Its main strength is its range, which range is not really worth much as Charles will never exactly hide. The only time he does move away is when he's fleeing, which there's basically no point as he'll just heal up anyway. If you're wondering how I figured this out so quickly, Ultra Kill. Need I say more? So let's start talking about the other optional quests I did. So this one, her name is Candice. She gives us some free scrap, and speaking of free scrap, there are these yellow crates which actually give you some free scrap. That's about it, really. Some people just didn't really know what this is, but I'll tell you that it gives you free scrap. The next mission I did was lockpicking this chest, and no, it's not like Skyrim. You also have to get the lockpick item, and which let me finish that pickle mission I mentioned earlier. Then I decided to do 3 missions in one shot. The first one was to get this guy's journal. The next one I did was a pretty fun one. It's a reference to Slender, where you collect 8 pages and avoid this ghost enemy that can't kill you, they just warp you out of that area, and that's it. The last mission I did was to get this guy named Theodore's blue lunchbox, and firstly, you're not Theodore. As a matter of fact, that is actually J-Slat. Oh, and Charles did attack me here before I went to get J-Slat's lunchbox. And Charles, despite being a spider, cannot climb for shit. Come on, Charles, I believe in you. You can do it. You disappoint me. After getting the lunchbox, which is guarded by a cultist, then getting the papers and the journal, I move on to the lighthouse with the next mission, which is to turn on these fuses in a pattern. Pretty easy. You probably noticed by now that most of the models don't actually have any lip syncing, so what you probably see is normal people talking. What it actually feels like is Next, I decided to knock out the last couple missions, that being the blue required story missions. I am missing a handful of optional quests, I'll get those as I go back around. I won't go through all of the blue missions because 3 of them are exactly the same. Only one of them is much different, so these 3 missions are to fetch these colored eggs, to fight Charles to the death obviously. They're in the mines and are obviously guarded, thus this now brings us to our new gameplay style being stealth. And well, is garbage. Honestly, even calling it stealth is really pushing it, as I literally just ran in and nicked the egg and dipped for all 3 of these missions. The last blue missions is putting all these dynamite on this old bridge. The whole plan is to blow up the bridge so Charles will die from full damage, and hope to God that he doesn't try to do MLG water buckets. And the person who's handling it is Pearl, who is unaware of the demise of Eugene Krabs at the hands of Charles, or well, legs of Charles. The last few missions I got was this one. You need to parkour up this old tower to get this guy's paperwork. I wanted to point this out, but most of the game's textures are fully hand-drawn. Even the grass is drawn, even the NPC textures are drawn as well. It's still that same sketchy style from My Beautiful Paper Smile, but you can't really see it as much because it doesn't stick out as much. The last mission was this one from a witch, who I'll just call you Gruntilda. She needs us to get this carcass of a fish across this bog, but there's a fish looking in that's hunting us down. You just have to start moving when it's close, and that's it. We've done all of the missions and have fully upgraded our train. Also, you can get customizable colors for the train, so it is no longer Homer Simpson train, it is now the Waluigi train. So let's head over to the temple and finish the fight. So the temple is guarded, too bad it's a total pushover. Like literally, I basically just ran to the door and opened it. These cultists are shit. We get inside and insert these eggs. But before we enter the third, this guy shows up. His name's Warren Charles III. He's been a bit of an antagonistic force. Well, not really. His basically name was dropped like it's fucking Voldemort, and just that was it. People hate him, and he's just kind of the villain of this game. And he's kind of revealing at the end, is like, oh, he was pulling a King Dedede, trying to prevent Doomsday, but I'm gonna be real with this man. He's wearing a top hat and a monocle. That's where I draw the line. Come on, Master Chief, let's get the fuck out of here. So in our moment of heroism, we ignore Warren and throw in the last egg, which summons Charles, and mutates him, and then he eats Warren, and then it's just a fight to the death. Also, his name is Hal Charles. You could have called him Choo Choo Charles. Such a missed opportunity. The fight itself is, well, kind of underwhelming in a way. He does get more abilities, but they don't exactly screw you over. The first one he gets is he teleports, and then the next one he teleports you, and that's pretty much it. He doesn't really do anything else outside of that, and I kinda wish he did a little more. Honestly, I think what he probably should have done is he should have had more attacks, which probably would have required you to actually have a higher armor stat, you know, something like that, I'm guessing. I even stocked up on metal scrap for this final fight, and I didn't really use a whole lot of it. Well, I guess it's a good reason why I upgraded everything. And yeah, the fight's over pretty quickly, and that ends Choo Choo Charles. There we go, Choo Choo Charles has been fully crossed off my list, so what are my thoughts on the game as a whole? Well, I thought it was pretty fun. It has its issues, obviously, and is quite a bit janky, but it is still relatively a fun time. This game isn't very long, by the way. I think my playthrough is just a little over 3 hours. The story is pretty silly, but it embraces it a little at least. This is actually one of the first mascot indie horror games to have an interesting concept, and to actually turn that interesting concept into a fun gameplay loop. Yeah, I know, this whole subgenre of horror games is sad. I think we get it by now. Oh, and by the way, if you press F10 on your keyboard, something in the game will happen. I'm not going to tell you what it is. I think it's better if you just see for yourself.
Yeah, baby! That's what I've been waiting for! more. That's what it's all about. Woo!
That is all the time I have for today, so if you want, you can follow me on my Twitter. Remember to like the video and click the notification bell so you never miss an upload from me. Thanks a lot for watching this video. Have a good one, and I'll see you lot next time. Goodbye. How about you chew on D's nuts, bitch?